To understand how sin entered the world, we must journey back to the earliest chapters of human history, the beginnings as told in ancient texts that have shaped the worldview of billions. The story, as recounted in the opening of the book of Genesis, has been a foundational narrative, ripe with symbolic meaning and moral insight. It is a story that continues to be pondered, debated, and interpreted by thinkers, theologians, and everyday people across the centuries. In the very beginning, the world was formless and empty. Darkness stretched across the surface of the deep, and the Spirit moved over the waters. Then, through a series of divine commands, out of the void emerged light and sky, land and sea, trees and plants, the sun, moon and stars, fish in the sea, birds in the air, and creatures of every kind to roam the earth. At the pinnacle of this creation, humankind was brought into being, crafted in the image of the divine, male and female, imbued with unique dignity and purpose. The first humans, known as Adam and Eve, were placed in a garden called Eden, a paradise adorned with every tree that was pleasant to the sight and good for food. In this garden, harmony reigned. The relationship between humanity, creation, and their Creator was marked by peace, innocence, and mutual care. Adam and Eve were given stewardship over the earth, to tend and keep it, enjoying an unbroken fellowship and receiving all they needed. Yet, in this garden paradise, there was a boundary, a single command given by the Creator. Among the many trees, there were two that held special significance: the tree of life, representing the fullness of life enjoyed in relationship with the Creator, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The humans were told they could freely eat of any tree except for the tree of knowledge. Eating from this one, they were warned, would bring death. The presence of choice signified deeper truths about freedom, love, and the possibility of genuine relationship. Without freedom, trust and obedience would be meaningless. Here, in the space where love could be real, the potential for turning away, what would later be called sin, was also present. Into this tranquil scene entered a serpent, described as more cunning than any other creature. The serpent posed a subtle question to Eve, asking, "Did God really say, 'You must not eat from any tree in the garden'?" This was the first seed of doubt, sowing suspicion about the Creator's goodness and intentions. Eve replied that they could eat of the fruit of the trees, except for the one in the center of the garden, warning that touching or eating of it would result in death. The serpent contradicted the warning, insisting, "You will not certainly die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The enticement was the suggestion that God was holding something back, restricting their potential, and that by taking the fruit, Adam and Eve could claim autonomy and wisdom for themselves. The pivotal moment came not through violent rebellion, but through deception and desire. Seeing that the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for gaining wisdom, Eve took some of the fruit and ate it. She then gave some to Adam, who was with her, and he ate as well. In the instant of this shared act, something profound shifted. The narrative tells us that their eyes were opened, and they realized they were naked. A sense of shame, which had never before existed, now pierced their innocence. They hurriedly sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves, hiding from one another and, soon, from God. When the Creator arrived, walking in the garden in the cool of the day, Adam and Eve concealed themselves among the trees. When confronted, Adam explained his fear because he was naked. When asked, Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent. In this moment, we see the first signs of alienation, not only from God, but also from each other and from their true selves. Consequences unfolded as the harmony of Eden fractured. Death and suffering entered into the human experience. No longer were Adam and Eve granted free access to the tree of life. They discovered toil and pain, the land became difficult to cultivate, and pain pervaded their relationship. They were banished from the garden not out of spite, but to prevent them from eating from the tree of life and living forever in a now broken state. Through this narrative, sin entered the world. not simply as a list of forbidden actions, but as a fracturing of relationship, a turning away from trust, a desire to seize autonomy, and a distortion of the original harmony. The act of disobedience was not an isolated event. Its consequences rippled outward, into the lives of Adam and Eve's children and beyond, shadowing all of human history with the reality of moral brokenness and the longing for restoration. This ancient story is more than a record of long-ago events. It is a mirror held up to the human heart. The decision to reach for the forbidden, to doubt goodness, to seek our own path, and to blame others for our faults. These are patterns that echo through every age. The story explains not only how sin originated, but also why we struggle with guilt, alienation, and the restless quest for redemption. Yet amidst the consequences, the narrative also weaves hope. Even as Adam and Eve faced exile, the Creator fashioned garments of animal skins for them, an act of care, even in judgment. Throughout the unfolding story, there are promises of future restoration, a descendant who would one day crush the serpent, setting right what had gone wrong. In this way, the story of the entrance of sin is not merely about accusation or despair, but also about the possibility of return, of grace, and of reconciliation. Later traditions and writings reflect upon this event, interpreting it variously as the fall, an explanation for humanity's moral struggles, our longing for something lost, and the enduring search for meaning. Some scholars see this story as a way to grapple with timeless questions. Why is there suffering? Why do we hurt each other? Why do we yearn for goodness but struggle to attain it? The narrative does not offer simple answers, but it provides a framework, a way to understand the human condition, our dignity as image-bearers, and the shadows that darken our path. Across centuries and cultures, the narrative has invited reflection. Is it a literal account, a symbolic parable, or something more? A story conveying truths that transcend particular details? People of faith wrestle with these questions, while others find in the story a profound articulation of the reality of moral brokenness and hope for renewal. In the grand drama that begins in a garden, the entrance of sin is not the end. It marks the beginning of a long journey, a search for restoration, a movement toward healing, and for many, the promise that even where trust is broken, love can find a way to bring new life. So, the story of how sin entered the world becomes not just a tale of loss, but also of longing, the longing for restoration of innocence, for reconciliation with the divine, with one another, and even within ourselves. It is a story that continues to shape lives, to prompt self-examination, to inspire hope, and to call each generation to the quest for a love that overcomes brokenness, even as it acknowledges its deep and abiding reality. Throughout history, humanity has wrestled with the burden of separation and the longing to be restored to a place of harmony and purpose. The gift of salvation through Yahusha, the Messiah, is presented as a divine answer to that deep yearning. Through faith, individuals are invited to receive forgiveness, reconciliation, and a renewed relationship with the Creator. It is a message of hope, offering the promise of inner transformation and the assurance of eternal life in the presence of God. Your support means more than just numbers. It's the foundation of a thriving, compassionate community. By subscribing, you become part of a movement dedicated to growth, understanding, and positive change. Sharing your thoughts and insights in the comments helps us learn from each other and sparks meaningful conversations. Together, our voices can inspire transformation and hope, shaping a brighter future for everyone. Join us on this journey as we work hand in hand to build a better world.